Today, we will be learning how to solve one-step and two-step inequalities, and also we will learn how to graph them on the number line. Here are the solutions to the problems. Question number 1. N plus 10 is less than 28. In solving this inequality, we will do the inverse operation of adding 10, which is subtracting 10 to both sides. Positive 10 and negative 10 is 0, so now we have n is less than 28 minus 10 is 18. To graph this solution, 18 is an open circle because 18 is not part of the solution. And n less than 18 means from 18 to the left. So this is the graph of this inequality. 18 is not included, so it's an open circle. And to graph less than, one way to remember this is you follow the arrow. Less than is pointing to the left, so that means the arrow should be to the left. Question number 2. Negative 5v is greater than or equal to negative 95. The variable is multiplied by negative 5, so the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So we're dividing both sides by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is positive 1, so we now have here positive v. Negative 95 divided by negative 5 is positive 19. And one thing that you need to remember is when you're dividing by negative or multiplying by negative, you need to switch the inequality sign. So instead of greater than equal to, it will be less than or equal to. The reason why we're switching the sign is that if you have numbers 8 and 4, to compare this, we will have 8 is greater than 4. Now if you will divide by negative 2, this becomes now negative 4, and this becomes negative 2. Is negative 4 greater than 2? Not anymore, right? This becomes now negative 4 is less than negative 2. That's the reason why when you're dividing by negative, you have to switch the inequality. And the same thing when you're multiplying by negatives. For example, if I will multiply this by negative 2, 8 becomes now negative 16, and 4 becomes negative 8. And again, negative 16 is no longer greater than negative 8. It's now the other way around. Again, if you're dividing by negative or multiplying by negative, you always have to switch the inequality sign. Now let's graph v is less than or equal to 19. So 19 is part of the solution, so this will be a closed circle. It is less than or equal to, so that means the arrow should be pointing to the left. Question number 3. We have 10 plus 7x is greater than negative 39. First, we need to do the inverse of 10, which is minus 10 to both sides. 10 minus 10 is 0. we now have 7x is greater than negative 39 minus 10 is negative 49. Now the inverse of multiplying by 7 is dividing by 7. And now we have x is greater than negative 7. So negative 7 is an open circle. It's greater than negative 7, so that means the arrow should be pointing to the right. Question number 4. N over 4 plus 10 is greater than 11. First thing that we need to do is do the inverse of plus 10, which is subtracting 10 to both sides. Simplifying this, we now have n over 4 is greater than 1. Since the variable is divided by 4, then the inverse of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So we need to multiply left and right by 4. When you multiply n over 4 by 4, that is now only n. Greater than 1 times 4 is 4. So the solution to this inequality is n is greater than 4. Graphing this inequality, 4 is an open circle because that's not part of the solution. N is greater than 4, so the arrow should be pointing to the right. Anything that's more than 4. Question number 5. 4 times the quantity x plus 5 is greater than negative 20. In this problem, I will do first the inverse of multiplying by 4, which is dividing by 4. And simplifying the left side, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now we only have x plus 5 on the left side of this inequality. Greater than negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. Another way of doing this problem is by doing first distributive property and then you do the inverse operation. But this method is a lot easier. So now we need to do the inverse of plus 5, which is subtracting 5 to both sides. 5 and negative 5 is 0. So now we have x is greater than negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10. So the solution is x is greater than negative 10, which means that negative 10 is not part of the solution, so it should be an open circle. X is greater than negative 10, so the arrow should be pointing to the right. Question number 6. Negative 13 is greater than x over 2 minus 4. The first thing that we need to do is, again, the inverse of minus 4, which is adding 4 to both sides of the equation. Simplifying this, we have negative 13 plus 4 is negative 9, greater than x over 2. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Since the variable is divided by 2, then the inverse is multiplying both sides by 2. So 2 times negative 9 is negative 18, greater than x over 2 times 2 is simply x. And it's always a great idea to keep the variable on the left side of the inequality. So to derive this, I will transfer x to the left and negative 18 to the right. You also need to switch the inequality to maintain the inequality statement. X is less than negative 18. So to graph this, negative 18 is not part of the solution, so it's an open circle. And x is less than 18, so that means we need left side of negative 18. So that's the graph of x is less than negative 18. Question number 7. 117 is greater than 5 minus 8n. First, we need to subtract 5 to both sides. And the new inequality now is 112 is greater than or equal to negative 8n. The variable n is multiplied by negative 8, so we need to divide both sides by negative 8. 112 divided by negative 8 is negative 14. Negative 8n divided by negative 8 is just n. And again, remember that when you're dividing by a negative, we need to switch the inequality sign. So now we have negative 14 is less than or equal to n. Rewriting this, that way n is on the left side. This is the same thing as n is greater than or equal to negative 14. To graph this inequality, negative 14 is part of the solution, so it's a closed circle. It's greater than or equal to, so the arrow should be pointing to the right. So this is the graph of n is greater than or equal to negative 14. Question number 8. Negative 10b plus 5 is less than or equal to 125. The first step is to do the inverse of plus 5, which is minus 5 to both sides. Simplifying this, we have negative 10b is less than or equal to 120. Now we need to divide both sides by negative 10. And this becomes now b less than or equal to becomes greater than or equal to because we're dividing by a negative number. 120 divided by negative 10 is negative 12. So negative 12 is part of the solution, so it's a closed circle. It's greater than or equal to, so that means the arrow is pointing to the right. Question number 9. X divided by 2 minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 2. First, we will do the inverse of minus 5, which is plus 5 to both sides of the inequality. So now we have x over 2 minus 5 and plus 5 is 0. Greater than or equal to negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Now, the inverse of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So you need to multiply left side and right side by 2. Left side becomes now x, and right side is now 6. So x is greater than or equal to 6, which means that 6 is part of the solution, so it's a closed circle. And the solution to this inequality is anything that's more than or equal to 6, so that means the arrow is pointing to the right. Question number 10. N minus 1 all over 15 is less than or equal to negative 1. In this problem, we need to do first the inverse of dividing by 15, which is multiplying both sides by 15. Multiplying the left side by 15, left side becomes n minus 1 alone because 15 divided by 15 is 1. Less than or equal to negative 1 times 15 is negative 15. Now we will add 1 to both sides of the inequality. So now we have n is less than or equal to negative 14. So negative 14 is part of the solution, so it is a solid circle. It is less than or equal to. This means that the arrow is going to the left. So that's the graph of n is less than or equal to negative 14. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing to my channel at Celzo Academy.